Welcome. I want to begin with something honest, something many self-help videos will not tell you. This is not about becoming an emotionless, cold person. This is not about pretending you never feel hurt, never feel anger, never feel broken inside. Real emotional control isn't suppression. It isn't swallowing your pain until it poisons you quietly. Real emotional control is understanding what you feel, why you feel it, and then choosing a response that serves your peace, your growth, and your future. That is what we will build together today. We live in a world that constantly tries to pull a reaction out of you. Notifications, arguments, unfair criticism, people who say things to provoke you, not because they care, but because a reaction gives them a sense of power. And it's so easy to fall into the trap, to fire back a message, to raise your voice, to defend yourself instantly. But in that split second, you hand over your control. You give your peace to someone who probably hasn't earned a single minute of your emotional energy. What I want to share with you is not just motivation that fades in an hour. This is a framework, a real, practical way to understand your inner world and become someone who is deeply calm, unshakably strong, and yet fully human. Not because the world is kind, but because you have learned how to navigate it with wisdom. If you stay with me until the end, I promise you will walk away with tools that most people never learn in a lifetime. Tools that can save relationships, protect your mental health, and give you a kind of quiet power that doesn't need to shout. Let's begin. Most of us believe we react because of what someone said or did. It feels immediate. Someone insults you and anger explodes. Someone ignores you and sadness crashes in. But here's a deeper truth. A large part of what we react to isn't the present moment. It's the past. It's old wounds. It's a story we carry inside us about not being good enough, not being respected, not being safe. Think about the last time you reacted in a way you later regretted. Maybe you shouted at your partner. Maybe you sent a long, emotional text you wish you could unsend. Maybe you froze in a meeting when you should have spoken, because an old fear took over. In that moment, you weren't responding to what was actually happening. You were responding to a memory, a younger version of you that felt unheard, humiliated, or invisible, and that younger self took the wheel. There's a story I want to share. A father I knew, hard-working, gentle at heart, had a habit of becoming harsh with his young son whenever the boy made a mistake. A spilled glass, a forgotten school book, a low grade. The father's voice would rise, his words would become cutting, and afterwards he would sit alone, flooded with guilt. He loved his child deeply, but something took over. One night, after a particularly painful outburst, he sat in silence and asked himself, "What is this really about?" And the memory came rushing back. His own father, 30 years ago, who never tolerated mistakes, who equated error with failure, who made a small boy feel worthless. He wasn't reacting to his son. He was reacting to a wound he'd carried for decades. That awareness didn't erase the pain, but it was the first step toward healing it. And slowly, he began to respond differently, not from the old hurt, but from the love he genuinely felt. That is the cost of an uncontrolled reaction. Not just the regret, not just the damaged connection, but the fact that you are not truly living in the present. You are being controlled by a ghost from the past. So, the first step to emotional mastery is not to beat yourself up for reacting. It's to start asking gently, what is this really about? What is the pain underneath my anger? When you ask that question honestly, you take the first true step toward freedom. Many of us were never taught what emotions really are. We treat them as problems to be silenced. But emotions are not your enemy. They are signals, like the lights on a car's dashboard. Ignore them, and the engine will eventually break down. Yell at them, and they don't turn off. Science gives us a powerful insight. Dr. Jill Bolte-Taylor, a neuroanatomist, discovered that the chemical life cycle of an emotion, the rush of stress hormones, the surge of anger, lasts about 90 seconds, just a minute and a half. After that, if you are still feeling the emotion, it's because you are choosing consciously or unconsciously, to replay the story in your mind. You are reigniting the fire. The initial spark is biological. The ongoing burn is psychological. There's a part of your brain called the amygdala. It's your threat detector. When it senses danger, real or perceived, it triggers a response faster than your thinking brain can catch up. That's why you sometimes say something before you even realize you've said it. The prefrontal cortex, the part that does the reasoning, the considering, the wise decision-making, it takes longer to activate. And so, the gap between the amygdala's alarm and the prefrontal cortex's wisdom is where your power lies. Most people live in that automatic alarm state, never knowing they can expand the gap. This means that learning to control your emotions isn't about never feeling them. It's about feeling them fully for those 90 seconds, letting them pass through you like a wave, and then deciding what to do next. It is learning to say to yourself, I am feeling anger right now. This is just a physical sensation and a chemical event. It does not define who I am. It doesn't have to become words or actions. You can watch it rise and watch it fade. That is not weakness. That is mastery. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the horrors of concentration camps, wrote one of the most powerful sentences in human history. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space is exactly what we're training when we practice the pause. Some people talk about waiting 5 seconds. That's a start, but let's make it deeper. I want to teach you a simple method called S.T.O.P. It's used in mindfulness and therapy, and it works in any situation, from a heated argument to a moment of panic before a presentation. Stop. Literally stop what you're doing. Don't speak. Don't move. Just freeze for a moment. Take a breath. A slow breath in through the nose. A long breath out through the mouth. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your body's natural calming system. Observe. What am I feeling right now? Where in my body do I feel it? Is it tightness in the chest? Heat in the face? And what thoughts are running through my mind? Just notice, without judgment. Proceed. Now, from a more grounded place, choose what to do. Even if the choice is to say nothing and walk away for now, it is now a conscious decision, not a reflexive explosion. I want to share an example that shows the difference this makes. A young woman named Aisha worked in a competitive marketing firm. One day, during a client presentation, a colleague publicly blamed her for a mistake that wasn't hers. The room went quiet. Aisha felt the heat rise instantly. Her jaw tightened. Every fiber of her being wanted to defend herself, to throw the blame right back. But she had practiced the pause. She didn't react. She took a silent breath. She observed the rage, the humiliation, the urge to attack. And then, instead of fighting, she said calmly, "Let's focus on solving this. I'll take responsibility for fixing it right now." The client's face relaxed. The meeting continued. Later, the truth came out, and her reputation didn't just survive, it grew. People remembered her composure. She didn't suppress her anger. She processed it and used it as fuel for a response that built her up instead of burning everything down. The pause is not about being a doormat. It's about refusing to let someone else's chaos determine who you are in that moment. After you pause, you have a choice about how to interpret what happened. This is where the real transformation happens. In psychology, it's called cognitive reappraisal. You change the meaning you give to an event, and that changes your emotional response. Imagine two people receive a message from a friend canceling plans at the last minute. One thinks, they don't value me. I'm always the one who gets left behind. The emotion that follows is hurt, rejection, maybe anger. The other thinks, maybe something came up. They've been under a lot of stress lately. I'll check in later to see if they're okay. The emotion that follows is concern, curiosity, calm. Same event, different story, different emotional outcome. Now, this isn't about pretending bad things are good. It's not about toxic positivity. If someone consistently treats you poorly, The wise response isn't to keep forgiving endlessly. It's to recognize the pattern and set a boundary. But for the small, daily provocations that fill life, reappraisal is a superpower. Here's an example. A man named Daniel was stuck in traffic when another driver cut him off aggressively, honking and gesturing. His first automatic story was, "What a disrespectful fool. He nearly caused an accident." The anger surged. But then, because he'd been practicing, he paused and asked, what else could be true? Maybe the driver is rushing to the hospital. Maybe he just received terrible news. Maybe he's not a villain, just a human in pain, acting badly. The anger didn't disappear completely, but it lost its grip. Daniel didn't need to honk back. He didn't carry the rage into his home, where it could have spilled onto his family. He protected his evening. He protected his peace. And that's the point. You are not rewriting the story for the other person's sake. You're doing it for your own freedom. Now we must talk about something delicate, something often mishandled, ego. Some teachings tell you to kill your ego completely, as if wanting respect is a flaw. That is not accurate, and it's not human. You deserve to be treated with dignity. You deserve to have boundaries. The problem arises when your sense of worth depends entirely on other people recognizing your worth. That's ego. Ego says, I must prove I am right. I must defend my image. If they don't see my value, I am nothing. True self-worth says, I know what I bring. Their opinion may hurt, but it does not erase my reality. I don't have to perform my worth to people determined to misunderstand me. When someone insults you, ego wants to scream because it feels existence threatened. Self-worth allows you to feel the sting, acknowledge the pain, but then decide, is this person a valid source of feedback, or is this just noise? And if it's noise, you can let it be noise without needing to control it. Let me share a story that captures this. Tarek had a friend who, over time, started making small, cutting jokes at his expense in group settings, about his career, about his appearance, always with a smile, always just kidding. Tarek felt humiliated, and his first impulse was to fight back, to publicly shame him in return. But that would have been ego fighting ego. Instead, he sat with the pain. He recognized that the friendship was becoming toxic. One day, he calmly told a friend privately, I value myself too much to be spoken to like that. If it continues, I will need to step away. He didn't shout. He didn't beg for respect. He just stated his boundary. The friend became defensive, but Tarek didn't engage. He walked away from the dynamic, not with anger, but with clarity. It hurt, but it was a clean, healing pain, not a messy, destructive one. He chose his own peace over the need to win a public battle. Your worth is not a debate. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. And the most powerful thing you can sometimes say is a calm, dignified silence, not as a weapon to harm, but as a shield to protect your own inner stillness. The next lesson is about energy. You've probably heard that not everything deserves your energy. That is true, but it requires a deeper nuance. If you protect your energy by building walls, you can become cold, isolated, and disconnected. True emotional mastery doesn't mean never caring. It means being highly selective about where you invest your emotional resources, and doing so with intention, not out of fear. Think of your emotional energy like water in a desert. It is finite, precious. Every time you obsess over a hateful comment, every time you replay a rude remark from a stranger, every time you engage in gossip that pulls you into drama, you are pouring your water into sand. It disappears, and you have less for the things that actually grow your life. Your creativity, your close relationships, your healing, your purpose. But what about the people who genuinely matter? What about the conflicts in your close relationships? You can't just walk away from those. That's where boundaries come in. Boundaries are not walls. A wall says, you can't come in. A boundary says, you can come in, but not if you're going to yell at me. Not if you're going to disrespect my time. Not if you are going to dump your unprocessed pain on me without awareness. Boundaries are the structure that allows you to love without losing yourself. I think of a young artist named Elena. She was constantly pulled into online arguments about her work. Strangers criticized her style, her choices, even her personality. She would spend hours trying to explain herself, losing sleep, losing the joy of creating. One day, she realized, they don't need my explanation. They've already made up their minds. And I am starving my art by feeding my defenders. She stopped engaging. Instead, she poured that energy back into her work. It was difficult at first. The pull was strong. But soon her work flourished. She became known not for her arguments, but for her creations. She protected her energy not by becoming bitter, but by becoming focused. So here's a practical filter. When something demands your emotional attention, ask 3 questions. Will this matter in 1 year? Is this person open to genuine understanding? Or are they committed to misunderstanding me? Can I influence this situation positively? Or am I just seeking temporary relief by reacting? If the answers lead toward futility, walk away with compassion for yourself and even for them. Not everything needs your energy, and the things that do need it deserve it fully, not the exhausted leftovers after you've fought with the whole world. Emotional mastery is not something you achieve once. It's a practice. Like physical fitness, it requires regular training. And just like going to the gym, some days you'll be strong, and some days you'll falter. That's okay. It's the consistency that changes you. Here are some simple, science-backed habits you can build into your daily life to strengthen your emotional core. Morning check-in. Spend 2 minutes before you look at your phone. Ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? What is present in my body? What is the weather of my inner world? You don't need to fix it. Just know it. Journaling for awareness, once a day. Write down one moment where you felt a strong emotion. What triggered it? What was the story in your head? What did you do? And what might you do differently next time with more awareness? This process turns experience into wisdom. The 90-second rule practice. Next time a wave of strong emotion hits, just sit with it. Don't distract yourself. Don't act. Tell yourself, this will pass. I can let it move through me. Let the body feel without the mind catastrophizing. Gratitude for perspective. This isn't about forcing fake positivity. It's about training your brain to notice what is also true alongside the struggle. Even on hard days, there's often a small thing. A warm drink, a kind message, a lesson learned. Noticing those doesn't erase the pain, but it balances the story and builds resilience. Let me end with a story of practice. There was a man who struggled with anger his whole life. He decided to try a simple method. Every night before sleeping, he would replay one moment where he lost his calm and visualize a different, wiser response. He did this for months. At first, nothing seemed to change, but gradually, in real situations, the better response started appearing faster. His brain had been rewired through imagination and reflection. He didn't become perfect, but he became freer. And that is the goal, not perfection, but freedom. We have walked through a lot together. We explored the cost of uncontrolled reactions, how they often come from old wounds, not the present moment. We learned what emotions really are, temporary chemical signals, not permanent truths. We built the power of the pause, using S.T.O.P to create space between the trigger and the response. We discovered how to change the story we tell ourselves, freeing us from needless suffering. We untangled ego from true self-worth, learning that peace does not require fighting every battle. We discussed protecting our energy with boundaries, not walls. And we committed to daily practice, because emotional fitness is a lifelong, rewarding path. You don't need to be someone who never feels. You need to be someone who feels deeply and still remains the anchor of your own being. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to explain to be understood by those who matter. You don't need to carry the chaos of the world inside your chest. From this moment forward, may you honor your emotions without being enslaved by them. May your silence come from fullness, not fear. May your calmness be your strength, not a mask. And whenever life throws its storms at you, and it will, you can pause, breathe, and remember, you are not the storm. You are the sky. The storm passes. The sky remains. Thank you for walking this path with me. I honor the work you are doing. Stay true to your growth. Protect your peace fiercely, but hold it gently. And always know that the quietest strength is often the most unshakable. Take care of your mind. Nurture your heart. Keep rising.